Good afternoon, this is Jonathan Sanchez. This is 12:44 p.m. I'm going to do the first documentation of the day, where we know that the historical context is not going to change, making history and the fact that it's not favorable for the DA, the county, the district attorneys, etc. And where we know that the shit show that's been going on with the elections. Because honestly, the whole, and I'm not going to bash on people in the situation, but saying she se puede in a situation that is so when they haven't held the agricultural people. You're talking about not only the thievery of the elections, but we're talking about an open eye. We're witnessing a situation that is a fraud. It's so fraudulent that is they still have the indignation to or the audacity to try to create this falsehood of immense amount of information, because we already knew the situation that was going on within the federal sectors, where we knew that everything that was done was terroristical, and I said it and I keep saying it, where we knew Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Trump administration, both administrations completely failed not only on settling the situations, but we already knew the fact that Daryl Steinberg and Gavin Newsom and Eric Garcetti completely abused the situation here in California. Like I said, it's not going to change any single aspect, knowing having an immense amount of power and the fact that even the federal Supreme Court knows the situation, where we knew the injustice, the corruption, dictating the situation, and on top of everything, we are talking about inhumane actions that were taken. Uh, we're seeing the implementation that not only as we see in the reporters, and like I said, the Washington Post was completely there in the situation because we already knew, like I said, I knew who they're working for, and we knew the situation as a whole and not as what they try to implement. And for the fact that we already knew that the federal government, if we should say, the United States government completely failed not only in protecting civilians by incrementing aggressive behavior, incrementing assaults, executions, and we've seen an increment of death since the pandemic. And obviously, as a high public official, we've seen all of this falsehood of information that's been incrementing. One of the biggest things that we've seen is my dad thinking he is the president or former president of Mexico, and the fact that his episodes get a lot aggressive, more aggressive in the time. So, that's another thing to deal with. But in a situation that we're trying to maneuver everything as straightforward as possible, we're not going to stand, or well, I'm not going to stand for slavery. I'm not going to stand for unconstitutional behavior. I'm not going to stand for corruption. I'm not going to stand for a dictatorship. I'm not going to support a falsehood of, should I say, candidates that obviously we've seen it firsthand. I'm not going to support a situation that we know that not only they fail to comply with basic civil rights, not only they fail to comply with respecting our vote, and not only they fail to comply with a situation where the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of to able to be informative in the right direction. And that's why Jen Psaki and a lot of the correspondent affiliations knew very well the situation that was going to go. Where we knew that the terroristical affairs that have been happening here in the United States is unforgivable. It's unjustifiable. And most of all, it was being completely done on open eye. And then to top it off, the situation that they try to provoke, and like I said, not only mishandling the entire situation, but we're talking about because they failed to comply with payments, and the IRSCI knew very well the situation. Don and Jim Lee, and I keep naming all these names because they were present at the time the corruption was happening. Not only we all knew because, like I said, I want to thank every single person because they already knew because I was Mexican, Jewish, French, and Spanish due to the fact that we already knew they were not trying to pay and they were stealing settlements and they were not only in the act of corruption and communistic and everything that was being done due to the fact that they were still implementing false accusations. Where we knew that the United Nations were very well aware of their fucking lies because they came to prove the situation. Not only because we knew that I was not a spy for Mexico nor Latin America, nor I was a son of a Chapo or doing selling narcotics, or for the fact that the false accusations, which no evidentiary support was proven. And on top of everything, we knew the sheriffs, the county, the DEA are completely a terroristical group, and I'm not saying all of them, but the ones that were implementing because they were splitting settlements in a situation that everything that was done was terroristical. So everything that I said last night stands. I haven't posted it because I wanted to clean it up a little bit more, and it was a little late. Also, we're talking about sleep deprivation. We're talking about hurting. We're talking about forced nudity. We are talking about false information. We're talking about information overload. Illegal hypnosis, which obviously not only putting triggers and the fact that they implemented such harsh and should I say terroristical tactics, and on top of everything, they implemented other tactics that are warlike and are used throughout wartime. And on top of everything, like I said, using medical facilities and prison facilities for executions because they are government funded. Not only the federal Supreme Court knows everything that was going on because everything that's been government funded have been used in a ring of, or should I say, a dictatorship to cover up torture and the fact that the pornographic footage that was obtained, and because I have a reliable source in which a former first lady first said they were still exposing the pornographic footage. And the fact that the situation is firsthand and obviously can be implemented throughout terroristical affairs because the situation is completely unforgivable. And even then, till this day, everything that Stephen Breyer, Daryl Steinberg, Eric Garcetti, and the fact that the situation that was done due to the terroristical manner because Jacqueline Phillips Lacey and Marie Schubert, you're talking about people that worked in the government, get paid by the government, are employees of the government, and were acting terroristically and assisted and or facilitated a hostage situation by embezzling, stealing identities, and election fraud. And we all knew the situation because they implemented such harsh endeavors in a situation that they still try to manipulate abusing technology. So you're talking about all of these federal violations that become international violations because they involve the North American government, involve allies, and obviously accuse Mexico of treason. Because espionage and accusing someone in the United Nations of terrorism is an act of treason. Therefore, not only the United States betrayed their ally, but the fact that the situation that with the false accusations that they have, where we knew that everything is going to be implemented inside a federal Supreme Court, and the fact that international courts can be the IJC can intervene in a situation, because not only was there a lot of false accusations, but the fact that the act of treason that was committed by the United States government, and I'm not saying all of them, and I want to thank the Pentagon for this situation, because we already knew that an investigation could occur because of the false accusations, which will lead to treason, which also leads to a situation here in the United States, because federal sectors and state sectors contradicted their accusations without any evidentiary support, and on top of everything, they were gaining monetary gains in which they were abusing the IRS in a situation that becomes RICO, dictatorship, communistic. I mean, everything that has been going on is obviously because we already knew. Not only they try to implement, and like I said, contradictions inside, which evidentiary support shows, and everything they've done and everything they said. And on top of everything, they try to act like the victims, they try to victimize the situation, pretending they were not contradicted, or they did not contradict themselves. Or, I mean, it's a laughable matter, should I say, because we already knew everything that is contradicted in a situation. And on top of everything, everybody in California, or people in California, I shouldn't say everybody, but people in California that were being bribed, because obviously trying to steal the money that does not belong to them due to terrorist affairs, false accusations, and like I said, attempted murder, because we knew everything that was being implemented was completely in violations of 10 constitutional amendments, basically breaking all constitutional obligation and all civil matter. And now the situation that goes into trying to create this gap of not only, should I said, like I said, the terrorism here in the United States, domestic terrorism that we all seen, everybody implemented, and the religious prosecution, laughing at the Vatican and laughing at the Pope and mocking religion and mocking the Pope, and the fact that all of this is completely tangible, is real, is not a laughing matter, and has not been resolved within the federal Supreme Court. Not only because they try to cover up for Stephen Breyer and this complete shit show and mishap that Dale Steinberg and Anne-Marie Sherwood and Jacqueline Phillips Lacey and other district attorneys that were involved, and not only because they tried to shoot me because the false prosecution was caught, and we knew they tried to shoot me for being Mexican, and they tried to steal, and they were splitting settlements that they were supposed to pay out since 2019. So yeah, the implementation that grew over that time, having power and obviously knowing that situation, that they know that the United States government has completely violated, and you're talking about two United States presidents' involvement in a situation which becomes election fraud in some of the cases. And we knew the diplomatic immunity that I have, and the fact that the situation that's been going on has been, like I said, laughable. They lost all respectability, they lost all credibility, they lost all ability to detain. And not only they took someone hostage, but on April 14th, 2023, knowing that new candidacies was going on, very new Kamala Harris was implemented in a situation that even a lot of the people that they were naming are guilty by affiliation and association, facilitating a crime, and also for the fact that the situation of complicity So yeah, there are a lot of federal and constitutional violations. There are a lot of situations that were not implemented on the right order, where we knew that they tried to execute me inside a prison cell without being able to touch me, knowing that the situation was completely terroristical. The death threat, the torture, the forced nudity, and the fact that being a high public official knew very well that the sheriffs, the county, the DA, and Daryl Steinberg, Gavin Newsom, knowing that that was terroristical, continued with the action in which they incriminated my dad in a situation that becomes obviously an act of corruption, and knowing that they were stealing my identity becomes a huge election fraud case. And not only because they, like I said, they try to abuse technology, not only they try to implement harsh tactics as the executive order that you couldn't talk to me directly, and still tried the audacity to make implementations of, and this is comes from, once again, very reputable psychiatrists, trying to make someone look delirious and hysteria. They're trying to make look someone schizophrenic, and on top of everything, they try to maneuver the situation because everything that was implemented, and obviously, like I said, and excuse my language, the shit show, because they were already making accusations publicly, which they, once you make it public, you have to stand by it, and once you make it public, you better have some fucking evidence, because we already knew the situation was already into the federal Supreme Court of the United States, where John Alito, Amy, Thomas Clarence, Sonia Sotomayor, Alina Keegan, and Kevin and other representatives should have had the respectability, or should I say, they should have done their job in a situation of doing the judicial orders that should have been done since 2020, where we know how that landslide, quote unquote, was done, where we know how this position of power is going to go, where we know how everything that's been obstruction of power and everything that's been abuse of authority, and how they were hiding behind presidential immunity. So this whole situation knew very well, and we know everything that's been done. We know how it was done, how it was implemented, and how everything was completely, at this point, laughable, because all the evidence and all the evidentiary support that shows how they try to not only sabotage Latino communities, but the fact that they tried to implement, and not to remind people, but the government was the one who told us they can do whatever the fuck they want because we were dumb. So, in that situation, I think I'm not just gonna give up in a situation that where we know it's terroristical, is corrupt, is dictating, and is communistic. So I'm gonna do another video. Thank you very much. God bless. I want to thank the Vatican. Thank you, Pope, for your support, and all the public officials and all the monarchs.